Mental illness is not a destination. In life, people will struggle with various things, all kinds of things. But when you have a mental illness, it can feel like it's just all consuming to the point that it is who you actually are. You aren't yourself. You are now the symptoms that manifest through your mental illness. Well, that is a lie. And that's a lie that your mind tells you. It's a lie that's understandable, and like the worst kind of lies that your mind can tell you, it's almost sustainable. It's almost like you can believe that there's a grain of truth to it. So it can be easy to accept that I am now my mental illness. I'm my diagnosis. I am what the doctors say I am. I am broken. I am this. I am PTSD. I am bipolar. I am uh, manic. I'm paranoid. I'm whatever. Well, the thing of it is you aren't that thing. You live with it, and it's part of the journey. That's what we're going to talk about today on STP. Welcome to Shattered the Podcast. STP is the story of my journey from the depths of mental illness to a place where I could live again. So I was at a school and a kid asked me when he thought I would stop being mentally ill. He didn't ask it that, but that was the crux of his question. And he wasn't being rude. He was legitimately asking a question that had a presupposition to it that I had to stop him just in the act of asking the question. I had to say, okay, you've started with an assumption that I am now my mental illness and I'm going to be that for the rest of my life. Is that correct? And he went, well, kind of. I said, okay, you haven't said anything wrong and you haven't offended me. But it made me think in the car while I was driving home that so many of us assume that once we get a diagnosis, that's it for the rest of our lives. Now, the day that I was diagnosed with complex PTSD was actually a good day for me because I'd been feeling all these things that I didn't quite understand. I knew that something was very, very wrong, but there was still inside of me that thought that perhaps I was making it up. Perhaps I was the problem. And when the doctor said, mate, you've got this thing, this PTSD, it was like a relief washed over me. It's like, okay, what I've got has got a name. It's why a person with an illness, a hard to diagnose illness, the moment that they can finally be told that there is actually something that we can recognize, something that we can quantify, this is what is wrong with you, it's a huge relief. And I know that for many people with mental illness, they now view that diagnosis as a positive thing, because it doesn't mean that they're condemned to be this for the rest of their life. When the doctor said, Mark, you've got PTSD, he wasn't saying you are now PTSD. He wasn't saying your PTSD is now your reality and that's all you can ever be. He said, mate, you've got a condition. You've got something diagnosable, something quantifiable, something that I now know how to not beat, because I'll never beat it completely. It'll be something that I'll always live with. But it's not something that rules every second of every day of my life, which it did at times. The days where I just couldn't move out of depression, the days that I couldn't spend time with people because of the loud, bright noises, the times that people would be speaking in a tone that it wasn't until later I realized it was a tone that was really upsetting me. It was almost triggering me. So what does that mean for you? You might have a diagnosis. And when I say that mental illness is part of the journey, it's not the destination. I'm saying it's a bump in the road. Now, in my case, the bump in the road was Mount Everest. I'm not saying it was a small bump in the road, like a little pothole that you're over it. This is something that when you get a diagnosis can take years to just get your head around and start to beat. And me, 15 or so more years since I got my diagnosis, I'm still living with this horrible thing called PTSD. But I know that it is just part of the journey. It is not who I am. People are going to want to define you. A great part of our own personal journey in life is to define who we are. What kind of person am I going to be? What kind of person am I? And when you throw a diagnosis into that, it can be very easy to forget that it is just one small part of you. I'm not Mark the PTSD guy. I'm Mark the guy that lives with PTSD. I'm also the father, the husband, the podcaster, the work colleague, the volunteer. I'm all of these things, not just one of them. Now, it's not a bad thing to try and define who you are. Am I a good person? Am I a bad person? That's fine. But you don't have somebody that broke their leg and then 15 years later say, oh, I suffer from broken leggedness. No, they had a broken leg. Depending on how badly they broke it, they might have needed years of therapy. I knew a woman that she was driving across Sydney Harbour in a car, span off the road, spun in the air, came through the pylons, landed on her car, cut off her foot. She spent 20 years trying to get back to normal with that foot. It was completely severed. They put it back on for her. Now, the last time I saw her, you could not tell that there was anything wrong with her foot. And it didn't come up because why would it? Because it was just an event that happened to her a long time ago. Now, if she was still in therapy and still had to walk with a cane, still had those visible signs, yeah, maybe we'd talk about it. How is your recovery going, mate? Are you doing all right? Are you seeing an end to this? But what this woman did is she never defined herself by her injury. I'm the woman whose foot was separated from my body and I got it so bad. No, it was something that happened to her. And that is what your diagnosis is. It is something about you that is quantifiable. It is diagnosable. It is real. But it's not who you are. The you that you are is still in there. Now, this is a difficult thing for me to say because I spent years looking back at the person that I was and then looking at myself and not seeing that person, hating what I saw. But the real me was always there. And it came back at times and it came back at strange times. And now he's back most of the time. Still a few things that I need to look after for myself, things I need to take care of, things that I need to be aware of. But the old me, the me that I used to be, is still in there. It isn't gone. And with anybody with age, you change, you grow. And that's what I've done. I've just grown with this diagnosis being part of the entire makeup of who I am. Mental illness is not a destination. It's just part of the journey. You are not your mental illness. You are still you. I promise. I promise that it's you. Have a great week. I'll speak to you again next time. Bye for now. Oh, I always forget to say like and subscribe and all that sort of gear. Appreciate it. Bye. Bye. Hey, thanks for joining us on Shattered the Podcast. I'm Mark. Special thanks to my producer, Meredith Brosnan, and also to Torian, Kevin, and Lorraine. And we can't forget the amazing band Adelaide, who let us use their song as our theme. For more information, check us out on all your socials, STP Shattered the Podcast.